Imagine this, a bride standing at the altar, her hands trembling, her eyes glowing with love, when suddenly her groom steps back mid-vows and walks away. The crowd gasps, the bride's world shatters, but then, in a twist no one could have predicted, 1,000 Navy SEALs and 100 black SUVs stormed the ceremony. Why? What secret was hiding behind this broken wedding? Stay with me until the end, because this story will leave you shocked, and deeply moved. And before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner for more heart-touching stories. It was the most anticipated day of her life. Claire had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl, rehearsing in front of mirrors with pillowcase veils and bouquets made of wildflowers she picked in her backyard. And now, years later, under the soft glow of twinkling lights strung across a vineyard chapel, she stood before Ethan, the man she believed was her forever. The air carried the faint scent of roses and jasmine, mingling with the murmur of gathered guests dressed in elegance, their smiles wide, their phones raised to capture history in the making. Claire's heart beat in rhythm with the organ, each note swelling with her anticipation. She held Ethan's hands, her eyes fixed on his face, memorizing every detail, the confident set of his jaw, the warm brown eyes that had once reassured her through every storm, the faint scar across his cheek that spoke of some untold story from his past he never quite revealed. The officiant began the vows, voice steady and ceremonial, yet the world seemed to fall away until only Claire and Ethan remained in the moment. Do you, Ethan James Carter, take Claire Marie Thompson to be your lawfully wedded wife? The silence stretched, waiting for Ethan's voice to affirm what everyone expected. But something unexpected flickered in his eyes, a storm beneath the calm. His lips parted, and the words caught in his throat. He stepped back. Gasps echoed through the chapel. Claire blinked, not comprehending. Ethan, she whispered, a tremor in her voice. He dropped her hands as though they burned him. I can't, he said hoarsely, shaking his head. I'm sorry, Claire. I can't do this. The words hit her like shards of glass. Guests shifted uneasily, murmurs rippled like waves through the crowd, and her father's face flushed with disbelief and anger. Claire felt her knees weaken, the bouquet trembling in her grip. This had to be a mistake, some cruel joke, some misunderstanding. But Ethan's gaze darted to the doors, his body tense as though expecting something, or someone. Claire's tears welled, confusion drowning her heart. Why, she pleaded. After everything, after all we've dreamed of. But Ethan didn't answer. He turned and started down the aisle, leaving a trail of stunned silence in his wake. The sound of his footsteps against the chapel floor was deafening. Every eye followed him, every heart questioned his motives. Claire's chest heaved as she stumbled, clutching at the altar rail for balance, her veil slipping loose, her perfect world collapsing into shards around her feet. But before she could gather her strength, before anyone could stop him or comfort her, the ground began to tremble. A low rumble filled the air, growing louder, closer, until the stained glass windows rattled in their frames. Then, in an explosion of chaos, the chapel doors burst open. Black SUVs lined the vineyard path outside, dozens, then hundreds, sleek and ominous. Soldiers, SEALs in full tactical gear, stormed into the ceremony, their boots pounding like thunder, their presence a storm descending on a fragile dream. Guns drawn, commands shouted, the air filled with urgency and fear. Guests screamed, ducking beneath pews, mothers shielding children, fathers pulling loved ones close. Claire's bouquet dropped from her hand, petals scattering like fallen hope. She stood frozen, her veil fluttering in the gust of chaos, eyes wide as the surreal nightmare unfolded. At the center of it all, Ethan stopped in his tracks, hands raised as if he had been waiting for this. His eyes found Claire's one last time, filled with sorrow, with secrets, with love he could not explain. Claire, he said softly, though his voice was nearly drowned by the storm around them. I never wanted this to touch you. Forgive me. And then he was surrounded, SEALs swarming him, black SUVs idling outside, their engines growling like predators ready to strike. Claire's mind spun. Who was Ethan, really? What had he hidden all these years? Why did it take her wedding day for the truth to shatter free? As Ethan was led away, her tears blurred the scene, her world unraveling. She had thought this day would mark the beginning of forever. Instead, it was the end of everything she thought she knew. The hours after the chaos felt like a blur. Guests scattered in shock, whispers replacing laughter, the vineyard chapel left in tatters by fear. Claire sat in the bridal suite alone, her veil discarded, her dress stained by tears. She stared at the mirror, but she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Not a bride, not a wife, just a girl abandoned at the altar, shattered by secrets she never saw coming. Yet questions clawed at her soul. Why had the military stormed her wedding? Why had Ethan surrendered so calmly, as if expecting it all along? She needed answers, and grief wasn't enough to quiet the fire inside her. Days later, she found them. Or rather, they found her. Two men in dark suits appeared at her door, their badges flashing, their tone formal but heavy with unspoken truths. Ethan, they revealed, wasn't who he claimed to be. For years, he had lived under a false identity, running from a past tied to classified operations, high-level betrayals, and a manhunt that spanned nations. The Navy SEALs weren't his enemies, they were his brothers once, now ordered to bring him back. Ethan had walked away mid-vows because he knew the storm was about to crash down, and he couldn't let Claire be destroyed in its path. The revelation cracked her heart wider but also lit a new light of understanding. She replayed every memory with him, his guarded silences, the way he avoided certain questions, the scars he never explained. She thought they were quirks of a man hardened by life, but now she saw the truth. Ethan had loved her enough to lie, to protect her from a darkness she couldn't comprehend. Yet, love built on lies still left her broken. Weeks stretched into months. Claire struggled between anger and longing, between betrayal and the aching truth that her heart still beat for him. She visited the chapel sometimes, standing where she had once held his hands, trying to imagine what he must have felt, knowing his world was about to collapse. And then, one evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of fire and sorrow, she heard a knock at her door. It was him. Ethan. Gaunt, weary, but alive. His eyes held oceans of regret and love. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered, stepping inside, "but I had to see you, one last time." Claire's tears fell before she could speak. Anger warred with relief, love battled pain. "Why didn't you trust me?" she cried. "Why didn't you let me in?" Ethan took her hands, just as he once had at the altar. "Because loving you was the only pure thing I had left. And I couldn't taint it with the blood on my hands, the shadows I carried. I walked away to save you, Claire. Not because I stopped loving you, because I loved you too much." Silence fell heavy between them, but in that silence lived truth. Claire's heart ached, yet deep inside, she understood. Life had stolen their wedding, but it hadn't stolen the love that still burned, fragile and fierce. They sat together until dawn, knowing the world would not grant them forever, but cherishing the stolen hours they were given. And when Ethan finally left, disappearing into the horizon, Claire stood at the door, watching with tears and strength. She had lost the man she thought she'd marry, but she had gained something unexpected, an understanding that love is not always about forever. Sometimes, it's about sacrifice, about letting go, about carrying someone in your soul even when their hands are no longer yours to hold. And as she returned to the quiet of her home, she whispered a vow to herself, to live boldly, to love fiercely, to honor the man who had walked away not out of betrayal, but out of love. And though her heart would always carry a scar, it was a scar of truth, of resilience, of a love too powerful to be bound by vows or rings. And that, dear friends, is the story of Claire and Ethan, a love broken by secrets but immortalized by sacrifice. Sometimes the most powerful vows are the ones left unspoken. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to Goodness Corner for more emotional journeys that remind us of the power of love, truth, and resilience.